as well as
Good
heard.
evening. Good evening, everyone. My name is Tanya McLaren. I'm the Executive Director for the Citizens Police Oversight Commission, and we are very excited to welcome you to our July 2024 meeting. I'm opening the meeting tonight because the office and the commission wanted to send a special thank you to the former chair, Jolly Hatchett. I think many of you remember that last month we announced that he would be leaving the commission. And so we wanted to really just send him off and say thank you. But we are so excited that we are in the hands of our very new chair, Hassan Bennett. And so with that, Chair Bennett, we are excited to be under your leadership and your direction. And I am going to be quiet now and turn it over to our chair. So Chairman Bennett, welcome, welcome. And sir, the meeting is now in your hands. Thank you for your service.
Good evening, everyone. I'm the Commission Chair, Hassan Bennett. This CPOC Commissioner meeting is hereby called to order. Oversight Commission, and I will be facilitating this meeting. This is a public meeting of the Citizens Police Oversight Commission that was properly advertised pursuant to the Pennsylvania Sunshine Act. I will now call roll. Commissioners, could you please respond verbally by indicating present or here? Commissioner John Solomon.
Present.
Commissioner Melanie DeBose.
I am present.
Commissioner Rosario Thomas.
Here.
Commissioner Hakeem P.A.
Present.
And if yes, present, Commissioner Hassan Bennett. We have 5 currently seated commissioners that are present. Therefore, we have a quorum. Commissioner Business, approval of meeting agenda. The meeting agenda was circulated to commissioners in advance to tonight's meeting and posted publicly in accordance with the Pennsylvania Sunshine Act. Do I have a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
I approve.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any opposed? All in favor? Say aye.
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 Aye. With the majority support, the motion passes and the agenda is approved. On to our first agenda of the meeting, suspension of a commissioner. City Council has recently amended the CPOC legislation and the mayor signed the amendment into law. These amendments allow this Board of Commissioners to suspend and remove a commissioner who engages in misconduct subject to council's veto. A commissioner may be suspended for up, to 90 days if cause is found to remove the commissioners. They may be removed after a public hearing. CPOC is currently conducting an internal investigation where there are reasonable grounds to believe there may be cause for removal. Or tonight we will have the vote if there's reasonable ground to cause for a removal or a suspension. This is a confidential, ongoing investigation where there are, so we are not able to provide public information about this. But what we will say is Commissioner Rosario Thomas is the subject of the investigation. It is alleged that she shared internal, confidential CPOC information outside of the agency and maintained an ongoing undisclosed relationship with an individual or individuals who are adverse to this agency. The investigation is not, and I repeat, the investigation is not related to an incident from 2023, which was referred to the Office of Internal General in the OIG, in the abundance of caution. The OIG cleared CPOC staff of any wrongdoings, which was publicly announced on November 2023. At this point now, I would like to give Commissioner Thomas a chance to speak in her behalf. Commissioner Thomas?
Thank you, Chair Bennett. I understand that it's suspension because I would not participate in the last minute meeting in the office. So with this, you claim I sent emails from my private server. Those emails written about a private citizen by staff that were slanderous and malicious and should have never been written was forwarded to CPOC commissioners, Chair Hatchett, Mr. Solomon, Ms. Santiago, and our new chair, Hassan Bennett. With the exception of Mrs. Du Bois, each of whom responded their private emails and corresponded with me in the exact manner. Those emails in question mysteriously disappeared from the government server, if not from the error in emails address. The emails that were sent would have been lost. Luckily, they can be retrieved and reviewed through the Office of the Open Record, OIT, or subpoenaed. Had I been informed of this error, I would have remedied it immediately. Because of the commissioners responded and corresponded with me in the email thread, we are either all responsible and should be treated equally, or we should mark the omission up to lack of training. Training of the commissioners still has not been completed. I have not completed my training. And move forward in our mission. This action is part of a lengthy list of harassment and bullying. It's an attempt to silence me from speaking out on the multitude of infractions and dishonest actions are perpetrated by the staff of CPOC. Staff lied to the commissioners for 2 years, stating investigations were being conducted only to find no investigations were done, refusing to follow directives from commissioners, refusing to provide the commissioners with the necessary documents.
Pardon
Yes.
me.
That's fine.
I can stop you for relevance.
Okay.
Relevancy, we're gonna keep this to relevancy on
Okay.
the investigation.
Okay. May I?
Confidential emails, you may continue.
Thank you. My private and sworn statement that I provided to the OIG, Inspector
We're
General.
gonna stop you again.
Okay.
We're gonna keep this and maintain this, the investigation of releasing confidentiality, your accusation of confidentiality.
You're currently muted, Rosario.
So I will mention this and I'm going to move forward. This is a bias and prejudice towards me. As the only Latina on the commission, I have requested to staff on occasions to include the Latino community, and to no avail. I spoke out on the false narrative about Mr. Irizarry regarding the original press release that was written and posted by CPOC staff.
Relevancy, once again, relevancy. You're on mute,
Mute.
Commissioner.
That's not me.
So
I'm not doing that.
go ahead. Now you can go.
Thank you.
Listen, when I explain the relevancy, I'm going to explain relevancy to you. Relevancy
Okay.
falls between the investigation, right? The
Yes, sir.
accusation, you're being investigated for releasing confidential information, and your comment must be relevant to that. So when I stop you for relevancy, you may be muted, and I'll let you go after the mute is over. All right. So you may.
Okay, thank you. Thank
right.
you. From the very beginning, staff has tried to put spyware on my personal computer, home computer.
Relevancy once again. We have no evidence of that. There's been no complaints of that. There's been anything that we didn't receive any complaints of spyware on your computer until this time. You may continue.
Okay. I must follow the Sunshine Act and the Right to Know Act. We have not followed our own legislation. We have failed the people, and we have allowed the taxpayers into believing we are investigating when we have not. I have been vocal about all these concerns, and more only to be abused, lied about to the media, and more. I will not quit. I will not resign. And if you suspend me knowing it is in the violation of the bylaws, I will have no other option but to seek legal remedy as a whistleblower and as an appointed commissioner. In closing, Commissioner Chair Bennett, CPOC hired up would rather attack a rape victim instead of investigating the police who refused to investigate. Commissioner, I never forward emails to myself. If I did forward emails to myself, let me correct myself, and I shared it with my commissioners. We discussed the incident, period. I never recorded any executive meeting, never did it. And those are the reason why this investigation is taking place. It was sent to me by Director of Investigation that they wanted to question me on me recording an executive session. I did not. I can repeat myself a million times. I did not. Thank you for your time and thank you for your understanding.
I have to make some clarity
Yes.
after that statement. Commissioner Thomas, you were afforded the opportunity to speak with the investigation team on numerous occasions to provide a statement or your account of events. You were also provided numerous executive sessions to do the same. Although you have provided reasons why you could not attend those meetings, you did not make yourself available or provide your availability to give your account to the commission or the investigation team. In regards to training, I must say, legislative required training we received. Did we want extra training? Yes, we did want extra training, but as far as the legislatively required retraining, we did receive that, and we even received additional training in regards to the Sunshine Act and ethics training. I addressed some of the things you said prior, And I will say once again, this is the investigation from what the commission was told is based around the release of confidential information. Hold on. I'm sorry. It is alleged that Commissioner Rizal Thomas, shared internal confidential CPOC information outside the agency and maintained an ongoing undisclosed relationship with an individual or individuals who are adverse to this agency. And with that being said, in accordance with section 21-1203, subsection 7 and 7.1 of the Philadelphia City Code, we will now consider the following resolution. The CPOC Board of Commissions, should the CPOC Board of Commissions suspend Commissioner Rosario Torres Thomas from all regular CPOC business during the pendency of this internal investigation. Do I hear a motion to approve this resolution without debate?
This is Commissioner DeBose, and I heard your wording of the motion, and I'm going to ask permission from the chair to articulate the motion as I hear it in my own mind. May I restate the motion?
Yes.
Thank you, Chair. In light of the fact that we have been coming through many hurdles and obstacles trying to make this a cohesive commission and trying to honor the will of the people who, by a vote of 74.9%, decided that this was a good idea. I am personally saddened by all of the disruptions that we have had. In light of that, and in light of the fact that this is an ongoing investigation, and as a commissioner, I still have questions that I need to have answered in my mind, I move that we, the commissioners, recommend a temporary suspension for our fellow commissioner, Rosario Thomas, pending the outcome of the investigation regarding possible breaches of integrity of the work of the Citizens Police Oversight Commission.
Thank you, Commissioner Du Bois. Do I hear anyone second that motion?
I'll second the motion. This is Commissioner Solomon here.
I'll take roll call on the motion. When I call your name, commissioners, say yay or nay in regards to the motion. Commissioner John Solomon.
Yay.
Commissioner DeBose.
Yay.
Commissioner Hakeem P.A.
Yeah.
Commissioner Rosario Thomas. Commissioner Bennett, myself, yay. With the majority support, this motion passes. It saddens me at this time, but we, at this point in time, we were appointed to uphold the legislation in a transparent manner for the citizens of Philadelphia. We were appointed by City Council after being vetted and selected by a selection panel. And it saddens me to see one of our commissioners have to go currently temporarily, as we sit temporarily. But this motion passes, and at this time, could we have Commissioner Thomas
Leave.
removed from, you may stay on, you still may attend the meetings, you still may be here, but as a citizen. Thank you. Next thing on the agenda, approval of the meeting minutes. The meeting minutes was circulated to all commissioners. Did all the commissioners have a chance to review the meeting minutes for June 2024? With that, can we have a motion to approve the meeting minutes? For
I
June
move that we approve
2024.
the meeting did I interrupt someone? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Do we have a motion to approve the June meeting minutes?
Yes, I can say so moved, or I will say I move that we approve the meetings for the June 2024 meeting.
Does
Commissioner P.
anyone second that motion?
Just for the record, if the commissioners could state their name when they're making motions and seconding them, just so the record's clear, please.
I'm sorry. Thank you. The motion was made by Commissioner DeBose.
Commissioner PA seconds.
With that said, all in favor of approving the June meeting minutes, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
The meeting minutes are unanimously approved. Next, we'll go into agency business. With that, I will forward the meeting. I will send the meeting over to Tanya, Executive Director, a new Executive Director, Pastor Tanya McClary.
Hey, thank you, Chair, and good evening, everyone. So I think over the last couple of months, you've already noticed some changes to the staff report, and I'm excited that you're going to see more changes, and some of them we're already making to this report. But I'm just going to give kind of a brief overview and then turn it over to each of my unit heads. And I think that the commissioners as well as the public will be excited about some of the changes that we're making to the report. So I just want to remind the community that the Citizens Police Oversight Commission's mission is to oversee and investigate the conduct, policies, and practices of the Philadelphia Police Department. Currently, we receive complaints of police misconduct. We audit and monitor internal affairs investigations and police disciplinary processes. We sit and vote on PBI panels at police discipline hearings. We conduct oversight of police shootings. We analyze police data. We develop policy recommendations and reports, and we engage in outreach and training. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to our Administrative Director, Danny Guy, to talk about the complaint data. And I think this is one of the areas where you will see some updates. One of the things that I thought was important was for you as commissioners as well as the public to kind of get a flavor of some of the complaints that come in. So we're going to start giving you synopsises of the complaints. And I know that Director Guy was planning to say this, but I'll also say this as, of course, these are what the person has alleged. These complaints have not been investigated, but we think it's important for you all to be able to hear some of the concerns that are being voiced by community members. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Director Guy to talk with us about our complaint data.
Thank you so much. Welcome, everyone. Again, my name is Danny Guy. I'm the Director of Administration. I use they, them pronouns. And I'm just going to talk a little bit about some complaint data that we have to present to you. So far for this year, this calendar year of 2024, CPOC has received and referred 87 complaints to Internal Affairs. 6 of those happened in the month of June. Right in front of you, you can see sort of a distribution of race as well as gender, and it should be noted that this is how the individual complainants report their race and gender. Next slide, Jody. This is a breakdown of the allegations that we've seen in these complaints, these 87 complaints that we've referred to Internal Affairs. You'll note that lack of service and departmental violations are sort of 2 of our biggest categories. You can see all the information, and it should also be noted that 1 complaint can have multiple allegations as a part of that complaint that we submit to Internal Affairs. Next slide. This is a breakdown specifically of the allegations that happen in departmental violation. We added this slide, it's a newer slide. Departmental violation can be, I think, kind of like a broad term. People might not know what they mean. And so we wanted to sort of break down what these specific allegations. So of that, I believe 25.57% of the larger picture of allegations. These are the breakdown of the different types of departmental violations and improper stop, as well as directive violations. Those are sort of the 2 biggest types of departmental violations that we see in the complaints that we've submitted to Internal Affairs, or referred rather. And then you can go to the next slide, Jody. And this is a map of a breakdown of sort of where we see these complaints. This is where the incidents are happening. Also, just to note, there was, we just want to make clear that this is where the incident happens versus like where the individual lives, who's reporting the complaint. Though sometimes the complaint can happen at someone's house, so that would be the same zip code. Next slide, Jody. And so just as Tanya mentioned, we're going to sort of start to give a little bit more information and sort of a scope of some of the complaints that we've received over the last 2 months. These are some summaries of complaints from May and June. And I just want to reiterate again, these are complaints reviewed by CPOC and referred to Internal Affairs. They contain allegations that have not yet been investigated. So we're not saying that these are false or not, but these are what we are hearing from the community. So 1 complainant attests that they were trying to walk past protesters on UPenn's campus on their normal route to work. They attest 3 different officers unnecessarily put their hands on them directly and tried to get them to move away from the protesters. They were also very dismissive and rude. The complainant quoted, "I had not been asked or told anything, and pedestrian traffic was not being properly directed despite several officers just standing around. They may claim to have been protecting the public from protesters, but I can say with complete certainty that I felt safer with the protesters than I did with either of these officers." Another complainant attests that a police vehicle blew through a red light using their vehicle lights and sirens, but there was no indication of them trying to get to a police call. They quoted, "We followed the car for several blocks. After the car was in no emergency, the sirens and lights never went back on. Police, respectfully, please stop abusing your power. With great power comes responsibility." Next slide, Jody. 1 complainant attests 6 officers came to their home to execute a warrant for an individual who did not reside in that residency. The complainant attests their 15-year-old child was home when this happened. The request of the officers to provide their name and badge numbers, but was never provided with any of that information. The complainant attests that 1 of the officers threatened to shoot their 13-year-old dog if the dog did not start barking. The complainant attests, though the dog was barking, they didn't move. It was seated in a seated position since it's old. And the complainant attests that 1 of the officers said to their child, "This is our home now." Additionally, 1 complainant attests that there was a vehicle accident, that they were in a vehicle accident and called 911 dispatch to have the police respond to the scene. They quoted, "After waiting for 4 hours and after calling 911 multiple times with no response, I went to the 9th district to file the police report in person. After going to the district to file the police report, a week later, they went to City Hall to get a copy of the report, and they were told that the information was not matching the DC number they were given. After a bunch of miscommunication and back and forth, they did receive the report, but the report was still incorrect and missing information." And those are just sort of some big picture types of complaints that we've received in the last 2 months. And I think also are sort of reminiscent of lots of complaints that we see often. And so we just wanted to share some a little more of a deeper dive, and hopefully we'll be able to do more of this as we move forward with each monthly report. That's it for me for complaints.
So let me see if any of the commissioners have any comment or thoughts on our report this month around complaints.
I have a question in regards to our ability to handle individual independent investigations. I know the CBA taps in. Is there any legislative grounds on it? And I think this is for Attorney Twigg.
Hi, Chair Bennett. I'm sorry, I'm not sure I understood the question. Could you repeat it?
As far as these, I understand we observe that we oversee, we sit in on investigations. Is there any legislative points on it?
So we perform a monitoring function right
Uh-huh.
now where we go to internal affairs and attend certain interviews. I don't have the legislative basis for you right now, but that is a function that CPOC is currently performing. I can
Okay.
follow up with you if you need more detail on that.
All right, thank you.
Of course.
Any other commissioners have any questions or comments for Director Guy regarding complaints? I hope that you all found the summaries to be helpful so that you can actually see what members are saying, and also just a breakdown in violations.
I have one more question. Briefly. When it comes to the protests where they were touched by police and the dog, are these arbitrative matters or are these matters for internal affairs?
Chair Bennett, would you mind explaining the question again?
I know we've been working on arbitrations when it comes to just sitting down with the police officer, and I may be wrong, just sitting down with the police officer and his citizens in certain cases or in certain complaints. Would any of these complaints fall under the category of an arbitration?
Can I clarify? Do you maybe mean mediations?
Mediation, I apologize.
Okay,
Yes, I was
no
gonna
worries.
ask, did you mean mediation?
Excuse me,
Yes.
I misspoke.
That's
Mediation.
okay.
Everyone was looking at me shocked, like, where's Mr. Bennett going? But mediations, all right, would any of these fit in for mediation?
That's a great question. Danny, are you able to answer that question right now? Or should we get back to them?
Yeah, I think we get back. I mean, I don't know if they qualified for mediation. There are certain standards. I'll say the The one about protesters would not qualify because presumably I can't list what the allegations were off the top of my head, but I assume based on the narrative that there might be a physical abuse for like the touching and whatnot. And therefore that would likely not qualify because mediation, the only things that qualify are lack of service complaints or complaints that are verbal abuse. And the warrant one would
So
definitely.
if our director of policy, Anastasia McCarthy, that's currently where the mediation program is housed. Do you have anything that you can add to what Director Guy just said?
Hi there. No, Director Guy is 100% on point. Right now, the only allegations that qualify for mediation are verbal abuse and lack of service.
Thank you.
Anything else from any of the commissioners around complaints?
No, this is Commissioner DeBose just saying thank you for the summaries, the clarity, and we admit to just being curious and really pulling information about who's asking what of the CPOC, and it's refreshing to get even this much of a grasp or a sampling of where the pain is with our community. So thank you, and we look forward to more.
You're very welcome. I'm glad that you're all receptive to them.
And one of the things I think it's important, one of the reasons why we felt it was important to start doing this is because, you know, one of the jobs of an oversight agency is start to identify patterns, right? And so what we'll be able to do is the team has always been doing this, but I think it's important for you as the commissioners to also see, you know, what community members are saying, to follow up on what Commissioner DeBose just talked about, because you all will probably start to see patterns emerge and things that we're already tracking. And as our partners in the work, it's going to be very important for you to also be able to identify some of those things when we bring them to you. So I'm glad that you all are finding this helpful.
Yes.
All right. Well, I'm going to turn it over to Director Janine Zajac from our Auditing and Monitoring Unit. She has already started just really expanding. You know, she's like, is it too much? Not enough? I'm like, let's just put it all out there in terms of what we are doing around auditing and monitoring. And so I'm going to turn it over to our director to give you guys an update. And she also, one of the things I've also asked our team internally to do, so the commissioners know and the public know, is that we do so much good work in all of our units. And sometimes people don't see it, right? They don't know what's going on. So I've started asking our directors to say, hey, when we're releasing reports and when we're doing other things, what can we also do to make sure that we're really letting the public know things that are going on? Of course, we always, you know, put things on our website and other things, social media, but how can we make it more robust? And so I would also like her to just let us know about an exciting event that's coming up for her unit to kind of highlight some things in the community. So I'm going to turn it over to our director for auditing and monitoring.
Hi, thank you. Good evening. So just to refresh anyone in attendance, the auditing and monitoring unit focuses a lot on internal affairs operations, and we continue to conduct regular audits of complaints against police. So that means that my team reviews closed investigations that were completed by internal affairs into complaints against police, and we review the investigations to assess the quality, thoroughness, and objectivity of the final report of investigation. So we ask a lot of questions about these reports, and we come to our own conclusions about the quality of the investigation. So the first auditing report that covers the foundational work of auditing that we did, sort of the building of our processes and the building of our data collection, that's set to be released. It's all completed, and we're going to present it at that town hall that Director McClary was just talking about. So it's tentatively scheduled for July 23rd, 2024. We'll present the findings of that first report and also provide some updated data about the audits we've conducted since then and some changes to our processes. So I'm really excited to share all of that information with you all. We put a lot of work into that, and I think it is a really great report. So stay tuned for that. The next slides are going to include data from the most recent group of audits that we conducted. These audits were conducted since our last commissioners meeting, so between May 23rd and June 24th. So we can go to the next slide, Jody, please. So one of the things that we track is whether the investigation was completed within 90 business days. That is a metric that Internal Affairs is supposed to follow. Of this batch that we recently audited, about 70% were completed within that 90 business day timeframe, which is really great. And then 30% were not completed within the 90 business day timeframe. An important thing is that the investigators are supposed to include an explanation for why an investigation goes over that 90-day timeframe. So the graphic on the right is showing if that explanation really made sense and if it really explained why it was necessary to go over 90 days. So it looks like of the 7 cases that exceeded that timeframe, most of them didn't include an explanation that we found to be sufficient to explain that excess of 90 days. You can go to the next slide, please. And we also track the classification of the CAPs that we audit. So that helps us understand the broad categories that these complaints are falling into to show what's the most common type of complaint that is coming into Internal Affairs. So in the batch we just recently completed, the highest volume was within the departmental violations category, similar to the complaint data that Director Guy shared. That is a pretty common category that shows up, again, with lack of service as well. Since departmental violations was the most common classification, we broke down in a table on the left side of this slide the different subclassifications, and that shows us more specifically what types of departmental violations were being looked at. You can see them listed out here. Refusal to provide name and badge was one of the common ones, improper arrest, and missing private property. You can go to the next slide. Another thing that I think is important to track is the encounter type that is leading to a complaint being filed. So this helps us understand how residents are interacting with officers and what type of interaction might produce an incident that someone would want to file a complaint about. So in this particular batch, a vehicle stop was the most common reason that people ended up filing complaints, followed by other. It's kind of difficult to track every single type of encounter, so we have this category other to track those, as well as a call for service by complainant and officers responding to radio calls. So this is just gives us an understanding of how officers are coming into contact with these individuals. You can go to the next slide, please. An interesting data point that came out of this batch of audits was that out of the 23 cases we looked at, none of them had sustained findings. So a sustained finding is when an investigator is able to show that an officer committed misconduct using their standard of evidence. So finding no sustained allegations was interesting. That doesn't often happen. So I wanted to highlight that. I included the slide from last month for the last batch of audits that we did, where the breakdown was a little more evenly split, where there were 56%, over half of the cases had a sustained finding of some kind. So that was an interesting thing to note. If you could go to the next slide. This is sort of a follow-up to that data point. We ask with every investigation, are the allegation findings logical and reasonable? So we're looking at how the investigator is breaking down their analysis, how they're walking through their thought process in their findings of these different allegations of misconduct. And we're tracking, like, does it make sense? Like, is what they're saying in their report actually logical? Are these findings making sense? So I'm happy to report that most of the time we do find that the findings are making sense. And in a smaller set, they're maybe not so logical or not so reasonable. Typically, this means that investigations are applying a finding that we don't see as making sense. They'll say that an allegation was unfounded, which means that it definitely didn't happen. There's no evidence to show that anything occurred, when really something else would have been a better finding, or maybe vice versa. So it's something we track, and we want to ultimately, hopefully, hold internal affairs accountable and point this out and say, maybe these findings aren't making sense, and see what we can do to help the reports be a little more clear. Can move to the next slide, please. An important thing that we track is also, is each investigation actually addressing every allegation that's present in the case. So a complainant can come to internal affairs, make a complaint, and have 5 different allegations that they mention. And then we're going to look through and make sure we're all 5 of those allegations actually addressed by the investigation. In this batch of audits, 10 of the cases out of 23, excuse me, did not address all of the allegations. And we found a total of 13 missing allegations. There may be instances where there's a good reason to not include every single allegation. Maybe it's just that a person is saying that they were wrongfully arrested, and it's very clear through the course of the investigation that that isn't true. Maybe they don't include that allegation in the investigation, but they should at least explain why. So explaining why some of these things are included could really remedy this. We're just hoping to bring this to their attention and hopefully see some more thorough reports that are really closing the loop and showing how they get from A to B in an investigation. Can move to the next slide. We also want to make sure that investigators are, following their due diligence and contacting civilian complainants and witnesses according to their own rules. So IAD policy states that investigators must make certain contact attempts via email and mail and phone calls. And we go through and check to see, did they make all of those attempts? Because witness testimony is very, very crucial in coming to solid findings in these investigations. And so making sure that they're contacting people when they're supposed to is something that's very important to us. So about half the time we're finding they are making all these proper contacts, and sometimes they aren't. So tracking this number over time will help us develop some data and make some recommendations to the police department where we can. Go to the next slide. So this slide is just sort of giving some high level points about other work that we're doing. We have been developing a project to review use of force investigations at internal affairs. Those are investigations that don't always come out of complaints against police necessarily, but are investigations done into uses of force that officers use in their work and are reviewed administratively by the department. So we're continuing to develop that, and we'll update as that project gets off the ground when we're able to do that. Year to date, we have attended 51 interviews at internal affairs, just within my staff and my unit. I know other staff also attend some interviews when they can. And we've attended 13 interviews since the last commissioners meeting last month. So we get there when we can. With staff capacity, it can be difficult sometimes, but we do attend these interviews when possible. And monitoring these cases helps us identify potential policy issues that our office can address. We had a complaint recently that we were monitoring related to search warrants, and Director Guy gave another example of a search warrant complaint that came up. So attending those interviews really broadens and deepens our knowledge about these issues in policing, and can help us spot if there's a larger issue or larger project that we need to undertake to learn more and address some things. So that's something we're researching right now. We may pass off to another unit in the office for work, depending on what we come up with. So I think that's it for me.
So Director Zajac, before we open it up to the commission, if you could give people, just so they can appreciate, obviously your team works hard, like what time these interviews could be occurring would be helpful.
Yes, so the interviews we attend at internal affairs happen at all hours. So sometimes they happen during the day, maybe 10 a.m., 11 a.m. More often than not, I would say they are at 8 p.m., 9 p.m., 11 p.m. So we're driving up to Northeast Philly to internal affairs to join these interviews and take part when we can. So yeah, it is quite a time-consuming endeavor.
Great, thank you, thank you. So I want to open it up to the commission to the commissioners. Does anyone have any questions for our auditing and monitoring unit?
I have a comment. I just want to say thank you. Thank you. This was a definitely a detailed report, comprehensive report as well. I just want to thank you for your presentation.
No problem.
This is Commissioner DeBose. I want to add my gratitude to that. One of the reasons that there was such a low percentage of satisfactory results with citizens' complaints was because of the lack of such in-depth investigatory processes. And it was told to us during in the previous iteration of CPOC that citizens were inadequately represented, investigations were taking too long, and basically officers were getting away with some of everything. So we're grateful to see that this process has been stepped up, and even after internal affairs has been through, you're doing a follow-up investigation to make sure that a satisfactory result has been had. So I add my thank you to that. And I'm going to try not to chime in on every report, but I feel it's important. And thank you, Director McClary, for your leadership that insists upon bringing this not only to the commissioners, but to the general public. Thank you.
And Commissioner DuBose, you can chime in on everyone. We really love to hear from our commission. We feel like as a partnership, so feel free, any of you, to comment on all of them. We really enjoy hearing from you and learning from you to help us get better, to help the public. So I also want to say, for all of our units, you've heard from complaints and auditing monitoring, you'll hear from the other ones. I just want to commend my team, because a lot of this depends on cooperation from the police department. And so the fact that my unit directors and their teams are able to do all of this just shows the tremendous respect that they have from members of the department and other things to be able to get this work done. And even sometimes despite obstacles. So I want to appreciate all of the directors and their teams, because the work that you all see every month at these meetings is a result of just, for many of them, years of just hard work and labor to help get this information out. Anything else right now? Director Zajac, did you talk about the upcoming? I know that Director Grimmage might have had in her report, but if you want to preview it for us and let us know.
Yeah, I mentioned it at the top of my slides, the July 23rd town hall coming up.
Yes. So please, 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 people, tune in when we put the information out. Please tune in so that we can hear about the amazing work that they have done with this report, because it's really important for us to be able to bring our findings to the community. All right, commissioners, going once, going twice. All right, we're going to turn it over to our investigative unit. And so reporting out for us tonight is our Chief Investigator, Nicholas Cato. So Chief Investigator, you want to take it away?
Gladly. Thank you, Director. Hi, everyone. This is Nick Cotto. I'm the Chief Investigator with the Investigation Unit, here to provide an update on the officer-involved shootings that we oversaw in the month of June. I'll give a high-level overview of the officer-involved shootings, talk a little bit about the process, and then we'll have a brief discussion about the relevant facts in each of those shootings. So there were 2 police shootings in the month of June. So to date in 2024, that makes the total 9. And this total includes every time PPD officer discharges their firearm at a person. Accidental discharges, animal shootings, and officer suicides are not included in that total. And we have a link on the website that will contain information about each officer involved shooting. Jody, if we could go to the next slide, please. Thanks. Okay, so here's a list of the shootings that had officer-involved shootings that we have in 2024. The most recent ones were one on June 15th, 2024, on the 2700 block of North 6th Street, and then June 22nd, 2024, in the 3500 block of F Street. Just a note about the process. The protocol that we have in place when there is an officer-involved shooting is that the investigation unit will receive a phone call in real time from the police department alerting us that there has been an officer-involved shooting, provide us with a location, and the investigation team will drive to that location where we'll meet with the investigators that are on scene. This happened, for instance, on June 22nd, well into the evening. Jeff Hussein, the staff investigator, and I drove out to the 3500 block of F Street, where we met with investigators who gave us a walkthrough in real time at the scene of the shooting. After that, we will receive the protocols that we will receive additional information and investigative materials from PPD, which we will quickly review to oversee the shooting and whether or not it was in or out of PPD policy. Jody, if we could please go to the next slide. Thanks. Okay, so the next couple slides are dedicated to a summary of the facts involved in each of these two shootings. So let's start with June 15th. This is one moment. I think there's a typo here. This is actually the 27 block of North 6th Street. But at any rate, on that date, at about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, a patrol officer was in full uniform in a marked patrol car, and they arrived at a business on North 6th Street to confiscate a dirt bike that had been tracked to that location. PPD officer Paul Moore and another officer arrived to back up that uniformed officer. Officer Moore and the third officer, they were in plain clothes, and they were assigned to the ATV dirt bike detail unit. A man at that location grew increasingly agitated and began leaning against the dirt bike and placed the dirt bike between himself and the uniformed officer who was discussing confiscating the bike. While the uniformed officer and the man spoke, Officer Moore, who was behind the man, saw him draw a revolver with his right hand. Officer Moore drew his sidearm. He approached the man, tried to disarm him, and as that happened, the man rotated away from Officer Moore, resulting in the revolver being pointed at the uniformed officer. And it was at that moment that Officer Moore shot the man twice. The uniformed officer who initially responded to the scene took the man in the patrol car to Temple University, where he was listed in critical condition. Jody, if we could please go to the next slide. Thank you. So now let's talk a little bit about the second shooting on June 23rd. This is the 3500 block of F Street, and you may well be familiar with many of these facts because they were well publicized in the media. At approximately 7:20, 2 PPD patrol officers were in full uniform in a marked patrol car to conduct a traffic stop at that location. In the course of that traffic stop, those officers learned that the male driver did not have a valid driver's license and that the car was not registered. So the 2 officers decided to live stop the vehicle, which meant that they were going to tow the vehicle. In the process of a tow truck driver arriving, 3 additional civilians who knew the driver arrived on scene, reportedly to persuade the officer not to tow the car. The officers in the course of the stop noticed a gun holster in the vehicle and picked it up to discuss it with the driver. And it was at that point that the driver began running away. The driver turned, fired at the officers. One of the officers was struck in the neck. The officer who was not struck by gunfire fired once at the driver, who was not hit. Subsequently, the driver, the person who fired at the officers, forced his way into someone's home. PPD declared him a barricaded suspect, and he was subsequently arrested later that night. And as of this update, the officer who was shot remains in critical condition. All right, and that concludes the summary of the officer-involved shootings.
So much. And one of the things I also wanted to say to the commissioners is that, as I stated, we're making kind of updates and improvements to the information that's coming forward. So each of these units, including the investigation, you will probably start to see changes in their reports going forward. And one of the things that's really important for the commissioners to know, they already know this, but the public, is that at this early on in the investigations, we don't report out things that haven't already been reported by the Philadelphia Police Department. And I just want people to understand that, because things change, facts come to light, and things of that nature. And so while we are monitoring, et cetera, we will be bringing information to our commissioners, but there are things that we don't bring to the public just because of confidentiality and other things. So sometimes the community members are saying, well, you know, we kind of already know these things. You know, we have an obligation to make sure that investigations are done correctly, right? And as we're monitoring those, we figure that out. And so I just want the public to kind of understand that our commissioners already know that. But just for the sake of the members of the community that are attending this evening and may watch this video in the future. So with that, I want to see if our commissioners have any comments or questions for our chief investigator.
My apology, and pardon me for not knowing the answer to this. This is Commissioner DuBose again, but I have not been privy to hearing Director McClary, your protocol for the timeline for a public facing comment. I understand what's happening in this meeting, but sometimes between the officer involved shooting and this public meeting, there may be a demand for a public statement, and I haven't heard your protocol for that. Director McClary.
So Commissioner DuBose, one of the things is we will always talk about that internally, but because these are not our investigations, we're monitoring them. It's really not our information to release. And so just as our policies is that we don't discuss ongoing investigations, we also don't discuss them around the Philadelphia Police Department. So I think it really is case by case in terms of what we can reveal or not reveal. And so we are always will work with our counsel on that to figure out what we can and what we can't release in terms of an ongoing police department investigation.
Okay. Thank you.
Are there any more questions from any of the, or comments from any of the commissioners for our investigative unit? All right. We are now going to turn it over to our policy unit. And I'm going to ask Director Anastasia McCarthy to give us our report and let us know what's happening with the policy unit.
Good evening. I'm Anastasia McCarthy. I'm the Director of Policy for CPOC. CPOC's policy unit continued working on all open projects, including data projects in June. Right now, the policy team is working to update explainers that have already been published to the website We're looking to refresh that and update all information that was previously posted. Explainers are a more simplified version of police directives and relevant legislation, in the hopes that it makes the information a little more accessible and easily digestible. We are also looking to expand into a variety of formats. I'm really looking at, hopefully we already do blogs and infographics. Maybe we can, incorporate videos. So we're just trying to expand that and reach as many people as possible. Updated information is being released on a rolling basis. And so far, I guess, let's see, up next, we have updates to our vehicle and accident explainer that was previously posted, domestic violence explainer, protection from abuse, and one on Miranda rights. CPOC's policy team is also working with the police academy to provide a feedback survey to graduating classes. This week, we will be sending the second batch of cadet class data back to the academy. So far, 2 classes have received the survey, and the results will be used to make informed decisions on curriculum and stuff at the academy. Sorry. Also, policy team members attended several events. The Philadelphia Commission on Human Relations hosts a quarterly civil rights task force meeting, which we are a part of. We attended the Philadelphia Committee on City Policy that was talking about the State of the City Pew report. We attended the Navigating Now to Next 2024 World Without Exploitation Conference, and also the Mothers in Charge 21st anniversary event.
Well, thank you, Director McCarthy, and Chair, you'll be happy to know this. We want to be responsive. At last month's meeting, you were asking about some of the explainers and can we do some other things. I think Director McCarthy was already thinking about those things, but we did hear you and wanted to find out if we could do things like videos, et cetera, for our explainers. So I'm really happy to know that Director McCarthy took that mantle and ran with it, and I will be working with her team and also the outreach team to figure out how we can amplify our explainer so that the community of Philadelphia knows things about the law that will probably directly impact them more closely and things of that nature. So, because one of the things that is great for our office to do, right, is lessen the impact on the community with their interactions with the police department. So, Director McCarthy, I'm excited to hear about the updates on that. And Chair, we just want you to know that we heard you last month and we're already working on it. And so with that, I'm going to open it up to any of our commissioners for any comments or questions for our policy unit.
So since you directed it to me, I want to say thank you. I appreciate it. It's amazing that on a public meeting that we can show that we are listening to each other and having and making change, making accommodations for all of our citizens in the city of Philadelphia, as well as not just hearing their complaints, but ensuring that they understand the developments that take place throughout our city and the legislatives as well as the PPD. So thank you to the team, and I'm excited to see the future, what comes of this.
Any other questions or comments from our commissioners for the policy unit? And I always tease Director McCarthy as well as Director Zajac, because people are like, people think policy or auditing and monitoring is not exciting. It's very exciting. And so I appreciate both of those directors for all of the zealousness they bring to the work and the people on their teams. It's very exciting. Do you agree, Director McCarthy?
I do. I really do. Thank you so much for that.
Awesome, awesome. Director Zajac, I'm sure you agree as well.
You know it.
Awesome. Great, great, great. All right. Well, we're going to turn it over to our outreach and training unit. So Director Talia Grimmage, and I've always feel so blessed when I, hear from this team, because, they really help bridge the gap with all of our units, right? To help the public understand what's going on, and also helping make sure that people get training and things. So I really want to appreciate her team. She works collaboratively with mostly all the directors. And so she often does a lot of cross work in the office. So I'm going to turn it over to Director Grimmage to give us our update on outreach and training.
Okay, good evening, everyone. My name is Talia Grimmage. I am the Director of Outreach, Training, Constituent Services, and I have the esteemed privilege of leading an amazing team of MVPs, which consists of Damon Green, our Training and Outreach Manager, Julian Jordan, our Community Outreach and Constituent Services Specialist, Giriana Hernandez, our bilingual community outreach and constituent services specialist, and Jody Eichel, our social media and communications officer. And so the outreach team, we are tasked with assisting with the incoming complaints, providing constituent services to city residents who need resources and connections to other city services. Oftentimes that phone will ring, and sometimes it has nothing to do with policing. But if we can point you in the right direction or do a warm handoff and get you where you need to be, we are happy to do that. We engage in the community education and training of staff, as well as engaging with the many diverse communities of this city. We create content, we manage all the social media platforms and pages for the agency, and of course, we accept and respond to media inquiries, and we highlight so much of the amazing work that all of the other units are doing. Next slide, please. Okay, so the first thing I'd like to do is just highlight a little bit of our outreach year-to-date data. And so this is something that we're going to be updating every month, but it gives the community a good opportunity to sort of see some of the areas that we are going to. These two maps are separated by one is the police district, the other is zip code. And so you can just kind of look at the legend here, and it just shows you the different types of outreach events we've had and which areas of the city they were in. And so this gives us a really good idea of where we need to get to, places we haven't been to yet, where we are often going to, so that we can just keep track of the many different communities that we are engaging with. Next slide, please. Okay, and so this slide here just continues to break down some of our outreach data. As you can see, it just kind of breaks down the reasons that we may be attending something, whether it's protest monitoring, education and training, raising awareness of CPOC, or whether it's because we are trying to engage with the community. This graphic at the very top just highlights that 71% of our in-person events that we've had thus far have been in person as opposed to virtual. And so we're always happy to engage however we can, but in person sometimes just gives us a little bit more when we're able to talk to people in person as opposed to virtually. And then the graphic at the bottom just gives you a good idea of the kinds of events that we went to, community, whether it was community organized, whether it was a commissioner meeting, protest monitoring, an event sponsored by the police department, or an event sponsored by another city department. Next slide, please. Okay, so we're going to go through some of the things that we had this month. First up is our Night for Oversight, a meet and greet with our new Executive Director McClary. Listen, if you missed this event, I am really sorry, because this was one that we really should have been at if you could have made it. It was a great opportunity for us to just come together with the community, introduce our new executive director to some folks. We are just so thankful to, number one, the park administration for allowing us to utilize the space in the mayor's room, but definitely Reverend Mark Tyler, who hosted our Q&A. We had Gail Lex, Kier Bradford Gray, and of course, Ryan Harris from As I Plant This Seed. And special shout out to the North Philly Aztecs because they came through. We had some young people come and speak to us. Council member Kendra Brooks was there. We had the Chief Public Safety Officer, Adam Gear, stop by. And of course, we did have some representation from the police department, the Deputy Commissioner for Community Partnerships, Maisha Massey, formerly the captain of the 35th District. She has a really great reputation for community engagement. She came through just to support the event. And so this was a wonderful opportunity to just spend some time getting to know our new executive director. I will say, if you were not able to join us, do not fret because we are planning more of these throughout the city in different areas. So please stay tuned so that you can join us at future events. Next slide. Okay, and so we always go out in the community and we go to different resource fairs. People often reach out to us and ask us to set up a table and just provide some resources and support different events. So if you know of something that's coming up that you're having or something going on in your community, please reach out to us. We would love to be there. We attended the Rainbow the Colors Handball Court Tournament and Resource Festival, and also Paragon Home Care had a summer bash in Oxford Circle. Next slide. Okay, listen, we're always happy to celebrate our CPOC Shining Stars. And so we went to City and State's 40 Under 40 celebration, honoring some of PA's finest. And listen, some of PA's finest included CPOC's finest. And so we got together and just celebrated the Director of Investigation, Jameson Rogers, just to celebrate him and his contributions that he's made to this agency. And so it was really good to support him. We also attended the Interagency Civil Rights Task Force meeting. Director McCarthy mentioned that briefly a moment ago. And so the task force is made up of local, state, and federal agencies who are committed to promoting civil rights, preventing hate crimes and incidents of bias, and sort of sharing resources between the agencies. There's a couple of logos here just to give you a good idea of some of the groups that attend. There's many more than this, but it is a quarterly meeting and CPOC is happy to be a part of it, along with so many of the agencies you see here. And it is spearheaded by Philadelphia Commission for Human Relations. Next slide. Okay, we also attended the Mothers in Charge 21st Gala, A Walk for Peace. This event was honoring victims of gun violence and the commitment that Mothers in Charge has to educate and support grieving families in Philadelphia. I will say Dr. Dorothy, she is a Philly celebrity, but she's a friend to the agency. She has come to several of our events and spoken about her agency and just her experience losing a child and how she has been able to be a change agent and really use this moment of pain to really inspire so many others. So anytime we can get together to support these groups and these agencies that are friends of CPOC, we want to do that. And so as you can see, several of us attended. You see our chair, Commissioner Bennett there, along with some staff. And also the mayor was there. Sharif Street was there. Patty Jackson from WDAS, she was the host. There was a fashion show. It was a really nice night to just celebrate Mothers in Charge and 21 years of service that they've given to the city. Next slide. Okay, we gave our complaint intake training to CMAC. Their organization has a domestic violence team. And so we met with them, provided a training on our complaint intake process, because as they are engaging with their constituents, they may have complaints that they want to file against PPD or things that they want to share with us. And so that training overview just talked about our referral process, what happens during internal affairs with their interviewing, what happens at PBI hearings, and then some constituent services. CPOC staff always interested in learning more and educating ourselves. We received a training from WAR, Philadelphia Center Against Sexual Violence. This was a training on human trafficking. And so that overview involved WAR resources that they offer to survivors. We talked about, or learned about, I should say, sex trafficking versus labor trafficking. So we heard about some survivor experiences. We learned about facts and myths of trafficking, child exploitation and trauma, and also grooming and risk factors. And so as we engage in this oversight work, often we talk to people in the community who have a variety of lived experiences. And so the more that we can educate ourselves about what those experiences are like, it'll help us as we guide this work. So we're really grateful for WAR for providing this training, and we're hoping to work with them in the future to learn more about issues like this. Next slide, please. Okay. And we talk about PBI a lot, but you may have heard before, you know, when we have CAPS, those are open to the public. And so for the month of July, on the 16th and 25th, if you have an interest, you are more than welcome to come to PPD headquarters for those two public hearings. And so you just have to, you know, come ahead of time, sign in and all of that, and you should have access to the room. And this is also shared on our social media as well. Next slide. Okay, so if you want to know where you can catch us next, on the 15th, we will be attending an illegal eviction action team meeting. On the 23rd, we talked about it a little bit already, but please join us for our community town hall, which is going to be about the auditing unit and all of their functioning. On the 25th, the CPOC outreach team is going to be leading a NACO webinar for other oversight agencies in the country to just share our perspective on community partnerships and all of the work that we do. So if you are interested, we'll definitely share info about that. And I would be very remiss if I did not just acknowledge that Pride Month has come to an end. But as we say for farewell, I would like to just share just some of the thoughts from the staff about what Pride Month and Pride means to them. So at this time, we have a video that we'll show. All right, the anticipation is building.
I think Jody just has to reshare her screen with the video.
To me, Pride means accepting and loving the LGBTQ community.
Pride to me is about community. The diversity within our community brings me pride every day.
Pride means to me that you are either your most authentic self, or you at least support others to be their most authentic selves, and you create safe spaces where they can do that.
When I think of Pride here in Philadelphia, being out in the streets, as well as our Fest in the fall during the National Coming Out Day, just the ability to be out and about, be your authentic self.
We Philadelphians have fought to see so many changes to make our city a better place to be for everyone, and Pride to me is honoring those sacrifices and attempting to match that conviction, and honoring that gives me spirit and makes me proud.
All right. So Pride Month is in June, but listen, as we say for Black History Month, Pride, listen, it's 365. So these are things that we need to celebrate and voices we need to amplify year round. And so I think that's all we have from the outreach team. But please stay tuned for things that we'll be doing. Come out to our community meeting on the 23rd, and please join us for future community discussions with our new executive director.
Awesome. So I want to just reiterate for the community, because the commissioners already know this, that webinar that's happening on July 25th is for a national organization, the National Association for Civilian Oversight of Law Enforcement. So not only is this team a star here in Philadelphia, they are training oversight practitioners from all around the country. And so I'm really, really excited about that. And so also to Chair Bennett and the other commissioners, one of the other things that Director Grimmage is doing is I've asked her to check with the academy to find out what trainings the commissioners can have. So it's important for you all to see how officers are trained and for other things. So stay tuned for that. We'll be bringing you that list so that you all can decide what trainings you want to take. So we are going to get our commissioners some more training and also the ability to observe the training for officers. And the other things that we're hoping to do for our commissioners is set up ride-alongs so that you can actually get with an officer in patrol and just see what it's like when they're out there patrolling the street, et cetera. So we are really doing things to not only do outreach in the community, but to also equip our commissioners with everything they need to represent the community well. And so with that, I'm going to open it up and see if there's any comments or questions from any of the commissioners about outreach and training.
I have a quick comment. And this is to the Director of Outreach and Training. Thank you. Number one, we've worked together over the last 2, maybe 3 months, hand in hand on the meet and greet. And like you said, it was an amazing turnout. It was an amazing event. Working beside you, I really saw how much you put into it, how much you care about it. And I just want to thank you as well as the staff, because it's not just that event that happens each month with CPOC. So seeing you go out to the different communities and touch different communities, and I call you anytime. I send an email, hey, we need to get here, we need to get here. And you make a strong effort to get there, and I appreciate it. I also encourage other commissioners to spread to reach out to the Director of Outreach and Talia Grimmage and have her hold something in your event, table something in your community. Thank you once again.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Like you said, there is a lot that goes into, some of the things we do every month, not just our community meeting, but just being out, even if we're at the academy doing a lecture or in the community giving a training or something like that, there is a lot that goes into it. But it is a mighty team of 5. So I just want to shout out again, Damon, Jiriana, Jody, and Julian, because really, really, all of us are a group and we make it happen together. And so hopefully in the future, when we bring on more staff and, get people to speak other languages, we are going to be unstoppable. So I'm looking forward to that in the future.
I do have one more question, right? Can you name some examples of, was a category of others?
Okay, are you talking about the data, right?
Yeah, where you said, I know it was one outreach when they spoke about.
Okay, so if we're looking at like this graphic here, where you see other, so we don't have a way as of right now with our survey tracking our data. We didn't have anything specifically for like trainings that we give or lectures we give out in the community. So other kind of encompasses all of that. If it's not a town hall or protest monitoring or an event that we're hosting or something hosted by another city agency, it's kind of captured in other.
All right, thank you. I appreciate it.
This is
Any other
Commissioner
commissioners for
DeBose.
questions? All right.
This is Commissioner
DeBose.
DeBose with a comment. I just want to acknowledge that I'm appreciative of the work that Director Grimmage has been doing and is going to do. Commissioner Bennett and I, along with members of her team, we've been working on a curriculum to implement a junior CPOC academy. And we want that to reflect what it is that CPOC does. And we also want to engender a sense of responsibility to looking after one's own destiny in our young people, to tell them how important the police are, how important the oversight committee is, and to remind them that we're not anti-police, we're pro-justice. And in order to really get justice, you have to understand how systems in our city, state, and government work. So we're looking forward to future opportunities. I've had some challenges in my personal life and church community, but we have not stopped building on the community, which we can't launch this summer. Not the community, but the academy. We can't launch it this summer, but we are looking forward to a possible launch this fall. So thank you and stay tuned.
Exciting. Any other commissioners with comments or questions for the outreach and training team? I want to underscore what the chair said, Chair Bennett, is that we also want you to initiate events. Director Grimmage and I will welcome those phone calls to say, hey, I want to do something in my area of the city, and working with you to make that happen. So we are looking forward to partnerships with our commissioners around events in your area and your communities. And so that when we give this report, there'll be a section where commissioners can report out on the community outreach that they're doing as well. So we are looking forward to that. All right, commissioners, going once, going twice. And really, I just want to, before we turn it back over to the chair, any questions come up for any of our units? Sometimes I know it takes a few minutes. You might want to chew on something and come back. So any questions for any of our units before we turn it back over to Chair Bennett? All right, Chairman, hearing none, we're turning it back over to you. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. We're now on the final portion of the public meeting. And this is the comment and feedback section. I will be reading, so I make myself clear on what we require from the feedback section and the stipulations and standards and decorum expected during the comment and feedback section. Please address your comments to myself, the chair. If you would like to speak, please provide your full name. We will not be unmuting anonymous participants. If you are a member of the media, please identify yourself. You can indicate that you would like to speak by raising your hand and sending a request to the meeting host in the chat. You may also submit public comment through the chat. You will have 3 minutes to address the commissioners. I will keep the time and notify the board when 3 minutes have elapsed. Any documents or follow-up communications can be submitted to CPOC at cpoc@phila.gov. That is CPOC@phila.gov. Public comments should be limited to the topics covered in this meeting. All public comments must refrain from defamatory or offensive language, threats, or harassment. Participants that violate these instructions will be removed from the meeting. While we welcome your public comment and feedback, commissioners may not be able to respond to your question or comments during tonight's meeting. Every attempt will be made to follow up by phone or email after the meeting. Once again, you can contact us at cpoc@phila.gov. That is CPOC@phila.gov, or call 215-685-0891. That is 215-685-0891. Now, I will inform you that if you go off, that if you violate any of this, I will stop you, right? And I may decide as chair to correct you and let you continue. I may. But with that being said, let's go on to the public comments.
Okay, so the first one I have is a Jason Rudolph. I'm going to allow to unmute.
Hi, thank you. Excuse me. I believe that we must address the critical issue of unfair and biased treatment by certain CPOC employees and commissioners. These actions not only harm individuals and our trust in CPOC, but also undermine the very fabric of our democracy. Government officials and employees hold a substantial authority due to their positions. However, this authority is limited. Limitations such as restricting free speech that infringes upon civil liberties. Action taken by CPOC officials that deny due process or equal protection rights are unacceptable. With that said, I am seeking an investigation into the attorney community director, former executive.
I'm going to mute that since that is not on topic.
Next comment.
I think the next person that we have is James.
James, is there a last name to James? Hold on, Paul. We're gonna mute you real quick, James. Is there a last name to James in the chat, Danny?
Currently, no. James, do you want to add your last name, or do you want to put your question in the chat?
All right, James Glover. Thank you.
Glover. Great.
Can we have him on?
Great.
Yeah, this is James Glover. Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment. I asked a couple questions. You guys answered some of them, but one of the questions I asked was, what legal authority you guys have to investigate CPOC staff and CPOC commissioners, and you guys sent me a link. I clicked on the link. It's the legislation behind, the commission, and I read the law. There was nothing stating that you guys have the authority to investigate your staff or your commissioners. So were you guys supposed to refer that to OIG or some other, investigative authority? So that was one of the questions, that I had, because I did read, what you guys sent me. Additionally, I did request the removal of all commissioners because multiple reasons, and I sent that in to all the commissioners. Could you guys respond to that, if you may? And I'll, ask one more question after that.
You can ask your final question.
I mean, are you guys going to respond to anything? Or give me 1 second. Give me 1 second. 1 second. So, I asked a question in regard to some of the training, the commissioners have received, and pretty much it seems like you guys haven't received any training. So could you guys produce some of the materials that you have been trained on? There's a couple sections in the bylaw and the legislation that tells you all what you're supposed to be trained on. So I'm just looking to see if I can get a copy of that. And if you could comment on, you said there are some, some individuals that's averse to the agency. Could you explain why, there would be citizens adverse to CPOC when you guys are supposed to be doing helpful work to help the citizens, as well as, address police misconduct? And that's all I'm gonna state for now. And I'll probably send you guys an email with a couple more questions.
Thank you, James. And thank you, Mr. Jason, for your public comment. Can we have the next comment?
I think those are all the ones of people who've named themselves properly in the chat. It's also 8 o'clock. I don't know if we want to. And now there's no questions in the chat currently.
Can we have a motion to adjourn this meeting?
So moved.
Does anyone second? Does any commissioner second that motion?
Commissioner PA seconds.
All in favor, say aye.
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 It is now motion passed. It is now 8:02 p.m. Meeting adjourned.
Thanks, everyone. Have a nice night.
Thank you.